She's going to stand. Take your time, James. Cool. Okay, well, thank you all for coming, and thank you for all coming in so nicely and neatly. It's great. Saves me a lot of work. Cool. I'm Kelsey. I work in this building, and I work for CGI and stuff like that, but I'll be hosting today. And thank you for all coming to GlasgowJS. GlasgowJS is run by the Scottish Technology Club, and I'll let Jamie talk about it in a little bit in a second. But first, I've got to do a couple of things to talk about the place. So so first things first, I am first aid trained and I'm the fire marshal as well for the building. But if anything was to happen, which hopefully it doesn't, you would try and find me. I do have my little red lanyard on, so find me and I'll either get you the first aid, or if there is a fire alarm, which there's none scheduled, but if there is, we would all go down the stairs and we would stand outside and I would figure out what I'm doing at that point. It's okay, I know what I'm doing, don't worry. There is another fire exit over the back if absolutely needed. And if anybody needs any assistance making their way down the stairs, please let me know at the earliest convenience. Another thing to mention about the building from an accessibility perspective is that the big two doors, like the thing that's like a spaceship when you walked in, that closes automatically about 6:45, meaning it's already closed. So if you do have to go outside for whatever reason, like a phone call or smoke or anything like that, let me know. Otherwise, you're not getting back in. And if you do go, take all your belongings, just in case. Cool. What else have I to mention before? That's just... I think that is it from my perspective. I'm just going to pass the mic to Jamie for 30 seconds just to talk a little bit about what he does.
Cheers, Kelsey. So hi, for people who haven't met before, I'm Jamie. I am one of the organisers of GlasgowJS and EdinburghJS, and I also organise Scottish Technology Club. One of the reasons I'm shouting about this is every Monday I write a little bulletin, so I scrape Eventbrite and Meetup and websites and Luma and so on, and I kind of compile all the Scottish tech events I can find into an easy-to-digest list, put that on the website. I'm also subscribed to anybody in Scotland who writes a tech blog or has a YouTube channel. If they're producing content that's interesting, I subscribe to that, so I put that in too. And occasionally people send me jobs because they know I organise these things, and those go in as well. So if you're interested in that and want to get that in your inbox every Monday, sign up. The QR code is on the banner next to me. We also have a Discord server. There's, I think, probably about 700 people in there now. Generally speaking, there are people who have come to the JavaScript events, but we've also got the Rust community, a few PHP people, a few .NET people as well. So kind of a good range of folks who are into tech. So that's quite a nice thing to join. I just run it myself. Sit down every Monday. It's not like AI generated. It's literally me sitting there. It's sometimes late when I'm late. But yes, that's that. The other thing that we've got there is a Patreon account. I know some people here are contributors to that. There are costs associated with running both the Glasgow and EdinburghJS meetups. Typically speaking, our sponsors cover the catering and the venue. Sometimes they don't. So it's nice to have a fund so that I'm not paying for pizza all the time. And also we've got like email hosting costs and like meetup costs and so on to cover. So if you're interested in chipping in, the link to support is on the website. And lastly, if you want to do what I'm doing or what Kelsey's doing or what Patty's doing and speak or host, there's opportunities for that. It's a low-key way of getting involved. If you're not up for like doing a full talk, you can do a 5-minute project showcase of something you've worked on, or if you're not even sure about doing a talk, then you can host, which means you don't even need to think of anything too clever to say, as Kelsey has ably demonstrated every time. Good. So anyway, if you want to do any of those things, then just either hit me up on the Discord or connect with me on LinkedIn or come and speak to me this evening. Thank you for coming. I will hand back to Kelsey. Cheers.
It's quite funny, actually. I was just checking my notes to see what else I should say, and there actually is nothing else to say. So without any further ado, I'll pass you over to Patty, who I'm sure you'll introduce yourself. But can we give a big round of applause for Patty, please? Thank you.
Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here again. I think I was giving a talk last year, and I had a cold. And I remember it was like my first time giving a talk during having a cold. And today it seems that I'm starting to have a cold again. So I don't know if it's related or not. who knows? Okay, so today I'm going to be talking about a topic that I really like, and I'm pretty sure that a lot of you are curious about this or are already doing it, or maybe you hate it. That's completely fine as well. I'm using HTML for my slides for the first time, so I don't know how this is going to work. Hopefully okay. All right, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Patty O'Callaghan, very Irish. I'm not Irish. My dad's family is Irish. I'm from Venezuela originally. I moved to Scotland 8 years ago. I'm a technical director at Charles River Laboratories, which is a company from the US that is all around the world. It's a pharmaceutical company. I also am the head of AI of the architecture and engineering group. So I lead all the AI, the way we're using AI for software development, also how the product teams are using it, and also like the rollout of the first generative AI tool for the whole company. I lead the AI governance council as well, so I'm doing a bunch of AI stuff over there. So my background education, I studied computer science, and then I studied AI more than 15 years ago. So my passion around AI has been around since I was a little girl. I love sci-fi and robots, Asimov books, and so on, and that's how I ended up studying AI a long time ago. I always say that back then it was really not popular, and we were just a bunch of nerds studying it. We were like 10, and everyone were like, "Why are you studying AI?" And we were like, "It's cool." Now we're the cool kids, so it's kind of the revenge. It really paid off, and yeah, AI has been in my mind for many, many years. And it's been a privilege, but also so overwhelming to follow what is happening with AI. And I really try my best to do events like this to talk about AI from a little bit different perspective. So hopefully this will be helpful for you. And I want this session to be very informal. So it's not me standing here talking, because there's a lot of content, but also raise your hands, ask questions, or maybe you can say, "Patty, what you're saying is just rubbish. It's a bunch of nonsense." I do love this kind of conversations, right? So feel free to say that. I do a bunch of stuff with Google. I don't work with them, but we collaborate a lot. So I sit in the Google Developer Advisory Board. It's been really cool because I get to see products that are not released yet. I do all of these under NDA, and it's really cool to see how the technology is shaping up, especially around AI, and give feedback on that. I'm a Google Developer Expert in AI. I'm also a Women Tech Maker Ambassador. All of these are programs, Google programs. And I'm an organizer of GDG Glasgow. I don't know if any of you have been on one of the GDG Glasgow events. If not, in November we're going to have the Dev Fest at Scotland. It's going to be in Edinburgh. Those are really, really nice events, but you will hear about it. If you want to get in touch with me or you have any questions, just scan the QR code. I haven't seen what's in there since ages, so I hope it's okay and it's working. So yeah, that's it. Enough. Let's start. So today I want to talk about using AI for coding. And using AI for coding is a topic that is a little bit controversial, right? If you talk with developers that have been around for ages, for example, I started coding when I was 8, but professionally coding in 1998 in the department of HTML of a company. That was the name of the department. So if you really, honestly, I'm not even joking, Department of HTML, like I'm old. So I have seen like the resistance because we have been coding in a certain way for so long. And this is just such a change in the approach that it's like I said there, it's a mindset shift. So I'm not gonna go through all of these because I have a lot of slides and little time, But this is basically the things that I'm going to cover. So let's start. Let's talk about like the evolution of how we have been coding and the assistance that we get as developers. So I remember when I started coding, when I learned how to code, was using BASIC, which is a very basic programming language. And there was no highlighting at all. You just coded, and if something breaks, maybe you had a wee message, and then you have to go and find what is the problem, what is happening. But that was it, right? Debugging was difficult as, you know, I moved and I started uni, I started to learn how to code in Pascal, and then I don't even remember. So it was very different. Then we started having the IDEs with syntax highlighting, right? And that was wonderful. I remember the first time I started coding like that, I was like, this is wonderful because you can really understand, like, okay, this is like where stuff is coming from. So the readability really was increased. Then we had the linting, the type checking, so that really helped you to have fewer mistakes. And I know that people, and also help you to understand in which part of the code you are working on. And some people have, you know, issues around type checking and all of that, you know, the usual arguments about how to lint and all of that, but it's very, it's like an aggregation of things that can help us get better at coding, right? Then we started the AI boom. So we started to have these tools, let's say the earlier versions of ChatGPT, or the BERT in Google, for example, where you can ask questions in natural language, get a reply, and suddenly we had stuff like Copilot. And we have, you know, inline help or autocomplete within your IDE. And that was like, this is amazing, this is the best, we're gonna be able to code everything. But of course, all of these, you hit a wall, and also, if you don't know how to use it properly, it can become quite the opposite. It can make you be a worse developer. We're gonna cover a little bit of that. And now we have the modern coding agents, which, to be honest, are pretty cool. And they are aware of your whole repository for your particular project. And the best way to go about it, like, we have to be very mindful in the way we use them for coding. Because I have seen very experienced developers using these agents in the very wrong way, and they, instead of going faster, they're going way slower. They don't understand what they're doing. They are, you know, injecting, like, in the code, they're committing code that really doesn't make sense. Maybe it works, but it's not maintainable. So it's about finding the balance, because it can go very good or it can go really bad. So suddenly you see very experienced developers making mistakes that are expected from a junior developer. And it's because they really don't know how to handle this very powerful thing. So how should we go about it? Like, just plan first. You need to have a plan, okay? You're going to create a new feature, or you're going to refactor something, or you're going to create a project from scratch. First, you need to plan. What is that you want to do? And then start the implementation with the help of AI. So you plan, and you go step by step, but really small steps. So you can also understand what you're doing. What are the changes that you're introducing into the repo? Then you test and iterate, but always be mindful about what is happening. Because this whole thing about vibe coding and, you know, letting the AI run free, and you just ask, oh, I want an application that does this, and then suddenly you have a bunch of code that you don't understand. If you want to roll back something, pretty sure that you have been in this position. Maybe you are vibe coding an application from scratch, right? And then you say, oh, I want to add feature A. And it goes and it adds it. the feature. And then you say, oh, but I really want now this to be changed to, I don't know, another color or whatever. And then it does that, but also mess up something in your feature A. And you're like, okay, why is this happening? Fix this, and then go fix this, and then something breaks over there. So you really need to have like a workflow, right? An organized process into how to work with this. Okay, so why do we want to have, and by the way, I'm going to share this repo, and I have to say, all of this presentation, all of this information, this has been created with the help of amazing developers in my teams. Okay, so this is not only my work, it's also from the experience of how the teams are using AI to implement code. Okay, so what is going to happen with the developers now? It's less typing, right, and more about giving a direction. So if you really think about this, how the programming languages have been evolving over time, right? I remember at uni we learn about machine code, for example. It's pretty cool to learn it and to understand how this code gets compiled and executed. So we first had that, well, binary, then we had machine code, and then you were able to understand a little bit, maybe we jump to basic and you see words in English. So for example, go to 12. You can really imagine, okay, this means that it's going to do a loop to line 12. And then you had object-oriented programming. Very similar, like every time it's getting closer and closer to natural language. That's the natural progression of the programming languages. And it's just logical that it's not going to stop, and that the final stage, because what could be after that? I don't know, coding by just thinking about it? Telepathy, I don't know. The natural stage is that it's going to be natural language. You tell the machine what is that you want to create, and that's it. So we are just going through the natural evolution of what we have been seeing for programming languages. And that means that we really need to be mindful into our roles are going to be more as architects of a software than typing letter by letter the instructions. It's going to get to a point, and open the discussion. Like, feel free to say that you don't agree with that, but I don't think that we are going to be spending time into typing words for a script. I think it's going to get to a point that we will think about it and we will say, it's ridiculous how much time I spend typing, line by line. So that's what we're getting now. It's not completely there yet, but it's going there very, very fast. It allows us to do faster refactoring. Obviously, the testing, no one wants to write tests. I think we can all agree on that. Maybe one of you enjoy writing the tests? You do? You guys are kind of weird, you know that. Nobody likes to write, but good for you. You too. No, you have a question.
So you're going to say that learning a specific language is useful in the near future?
What's that? Sorry?
You're going to say that learning a language.
Is it okay if you talk into the microphone? It's not for Kathy, it's for the folk at home, because otherwise
Okay.
Yeah. So you're going to say that learning a specific programming language wouldn't be useful in the future?
Well, I have a controversial opinion about programming languages. So I think it's important to understand a programming language. I think, and don't kill me, I think that a good programmer, a good developer, is able to work in any language. It's just that they will need some time to understand like the details of that language. But behind any programming language, you have the same kind of workflow and how to code and how to write a piece of software. So I think that it might take you more time to understand a framework and all the details, but I think I wouldn't recommend you to focus too much on a particular language. And it's important to understand, I think it's more important to understand how the system works and what is that you need to put together, right? So for example, let's say that you're working on a React application, or you're working, with Node.js in the backend. Like, you really need to know what is that you need to connect to the database, maybe the SSL certificate that you need to have in place. Maybe you also need to be mindful about, I don't know, like all the little pieces that you need to put together. So really, I think that we shouldn't try to focus way too much into a particular language. And I think we should change our perspective into understanding what are the pieces that we need to put together. And then for the particular project that you're working on, learn about the programming language, but AI is going to take care of the coding, most of it. What you're really going to bring is putting the pieces together because you understand the pieces and the context, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's not a light question, though. It's not a light question, though. It's for the audio. All right, oh yeah, sure. Yeah, so it's kind of a heavy question, like, so is that fine? Like,
What's that?
it's not a very light question, so it's like an elaborate question, so is that fine?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so basically, you've told us about the evolution of programming languages. We used to have the machine language, then we abstracted it onto the assembly language, then we have like the normal programming language, then we have object-oriented programming language. So the one thing that's very common in these is, these are all deterministic. Like, so once we abstract it away, we don't need to worry about what's going on under the hood. But it's not exactly the same with AI, right? So it's indeterministic. Like, we can't possibly predict what code has AI written in the code base. Like, there could be a major security vulnerability like written in the code base. So we actually, for like critical cases, we actually need to go through like the actual code base to make sure that it's going to work properly in production, right? So how long do you think it's going to take the current models to get to a level where they can write deterministic programming? I mean, deterministic code. How long it's going to take for this current models? So yeah, that's my question. Yeah.
Yes. So here's the thing. What the AI is going to do is that it's going to create a script, right? And the deterministic piece of this is that that script is going to be like that. It's not going to change by itself, right? So you have the script, you can create a PR, you do the code review, and you deploy it. So if you really think about it, what you don't want is the AI deploying stuff to production without review. It's the same as, imagine that you have a junior developer and you are allowing them to go and write code because human-generated code is also wrong. And if it wasn't wrong, we wouldn't have debugging, code reviews. Like, most of the code that I have written in my life has been kind of wrong. So that's why we have code reviewing, and we need to keep those processes in place, especially for AI-generated code, right? But yeah, just keep in mind, it's the same as any other developer in your team. You want to have the same processes into reviewing the code and all of that.
The learning a programming language is still very, very important. Yeah.
Of course it's important. It is important. Yes. I'm not saying that it's not important. What I'm saying is that you guys shouldn't spend too much time just focusing on one programming language.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Don't do that. Try to understand the program. Try to learn.
Yeah.
The language that on the projects that you're working on, but you really need to learn how to put together the pieces and how to be flexible enough to work with different programming languages. Because the little details on how to put stuff together and how to code, the AI is going to do that. You just have to review and allow it
Yeah,
to be.
basically, yeah. You need to understand like how the different pieces fit together. Is that
Absolutely.
yeah.
And I can't stress this enough.
Uh,
Because very soon, very soon, it will not make sense at all to spend 4 hours, 2 days, 3 days writing code line by line. It's just, it's not
yeah.
going to happen. All right.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
Any other question? Okay. But yeah, I agree in something. So for example, faster documentation. That's a tricky one, right? Because you can test code, right? You can create a test for your code and see if it works or not. How do you test the documentation, right? You really need to review it. You really need to learn it. Not learn it, like make sure that it's okay. So documentation, but again, we are living in such an era where everything is changing so fast and AI is getting better and better and better, and we just can't expect that this is going to get way, way better. But still, we need to be mindful of reviewing everything. And I'm going to go bit by bit. But to your point, you are the one that guides the AI assistant. You are always going to review the code, and you're going to, okay, you can go to production. Same way you do with the other developers in your team. AI really helps you to, you know, for example, if I want to create a Drupal module, I work with Drupal in one of my projects. The boilerplate code, I can ask the tool that I'm using to create it, right? And then I can work over that. It's just way, way faster. And the design and the quality of what we push to production is our responsibility, right? Have you heard about agents.md? Do you know what is that? So basically that is, if you, and I'm going to show how this works. If you're using one of these tools to interact with your repo to generate code, there is this file, agents.md, where you can define all the context of your repo in terms of what do you want to do, what are the specifications that this AI agent needs to follow, and so on. I will share this file in the repo. Okay, so this is what we have in place right now. We have the autocomplete copilots within the IDE. We have the chat assistants, Gemini, ChatGPT. You can ask, you can generate documentations, design diagrams. And then the ones that I really love are the CLI, right? You can use the CLI to connect to your repo and start working. I will show how this works. So the really cool thing about this is that it has a full understanding of the repo. You don't need to, let's say that you use ChatGPT for writing, or maybe you want to fix a problem in your code base. You will, before you will add, you will select some of the files and you will upload them. And it's really not that effective because it doesn't know the full context of the whole project. But with these tools, it automatically has that context, so the output that it gives you is way, way better. Okay, so what is the change that we need to have? I already told you a little bit about this. First of all, you want, as any software engineer, we want to build a system that is going to solve problems, right? This is what we want to create with the workflow that we're going to have with AI. And we really need to change our minds between a coder writing lines to an architect, putting the pieces together, right? AI can give you suggestions, but by the end of the day, you guide the AI and you have the control over it. So what are the things that you have to do? Be very good at defining the problem, right? What is that you want to solve? be very good at the context, give the right context. So for example, have you heard obviously about prompt engineering, right? Everyone has heard about prompt engineering. Now there's a new, buzzword going around, which is context engineering. Have you heard about it? Right? So it's about, now it's not only how to ask the questions to the LLM in the best way, it's also how to give the right context in the best way. Because there are certain conditions that we need to be mindful about around the context. So define the problem, curate the context, review the changes, and review the changes, and be very, very careful into not letting AI to push code into the repo, not letting your coworkers or advising your coworkers of not over-relying on AI, because that's now another big problem that we're seeing, is that you really need to find a balance. So now we have been seeing developers that are just, it's a total nightmare. It is a total nightmare. I'm not even kidding. It's horrible. So they produce this amount of code. Or for example, you are trying to debug a problem. You have a production is broken. You need to find the issue. You need to go look at the logs. And now you see these people, they grab the logs, they put it into ChatGPT. ChatGPT doesn't have the right context. It just says whatever idea ChatGPT had, and then you have these people following what ChatGPT without even stopping and thinking, like, hold on a second, like, do you understand what you're doing? Do you understand the problem? So you also need to be mindful into, it's such a good tool, it's so great for coding, but it's also our worst enemy, and it's just going to get worse. And the developers that learn how to use AI for coding the right way are the ones that are going to get hired. The developers that are doing a mess with AI, I don't want them in my team, because they're bringing way more trouble than the ones that are okay-ish coders or maybe juniors. Because at least they kind of go think about what they're doing. Now we have people like producing this kind of, and disclaimer, I'm not talking about anyone specific in my teams. I'm just talking generally. Just in case, because this is being recorded, so. Okay. So I'm not gonna go through this because you already know what is AI probably, and that what are the strengths, the weaknesses of, and this slide is so wrong. I want to destroy it and do it again. This is wrong because this should say, what is generative AI? LLMs in 2 minutes. So I really want to apologize from the bottom of my heart, because this is something that I have been fighting against for so many years, and now I'm doing it in front of a bunch of people and recording. So apologies for that. So I think that at the bottom line is just be mindful that generative AI is autocomplete on steroids. That is true. But we're talking about the models, right? The models specifically. Now when we have these generative AI systems where you have the LLM and also you have a tool that can go and do a Google search, and then you have another tool that can go and connect to an API, then the capacity gets bigger and bigger, and that can be, they stop being autocomplete. So we have to be very mindful. One thing is to talk about the large language model, and another thing is to talk about a generative AI application, because then the features and the output that you can get is very different. So, just because of time, I'm going to skip this. Again, this is going to be shared in the repo, but this also explains a little bit how the LLMs, how they generate code. But I guess the most important thing, again, planning, doing everything in small steps, and testing what you're doing. Have you heard about the context windows? Do you know what that is? So when you are working with LLMs, let's say it's all about words, right? And we get chunks of those words, right? Little chunks of letters, and that is what's going to be processed, right? Those chunks are called tokens. And depending on the model that you're using, the tokens that they can put into the context is bigger or shorter. And the context window is the context that the LLM has in order to understand like kind of the history of the conversation and what is the LLM going to reply next. So you can start having a conversation with an LLM about a project, and it can tell you this is the function, this is. But as you keep chatting and chatting and chatting and chatting and chatting, it gets to a point where the information gets out of the context window, and then the LLM is not able to kind of remember what it was talking about some minutes ago. So really depending on what you want to do, the size of your project, or maybe you're working on the architect or whatever, you have to have a look around and see what is the LLM that really works for you. There are some models that are general. You can use it for anything. And there are other models that are specific for coding. So depending on what you're going to do, again, maybe those are the models that you might want to use. This is also what I was telling you about, that the window and the confidence calibration. So LLMs, they can be very confident. They can sound very, very confident, even when they're wrong. It's like my mom. And then, honestly, and it's like you cannot do anything. So what are the red flags that you can see? It's like you will see APIs that really don't exist. I have seen this many, many times. Functions or methods that are not really present in that framework. And suddenly, again, you might have a developer or even yourself that are trying to run something. And then you go and you have a problem. You see in the logs. You copy and paste the logs, like the error. And now instead of going to a Stack Overflow like the decent people used to do, now you go to the generative AI tool, whatever you use, ChatGPT or whatever, and it might tell you, which is cool. I do it every day. It's good. But you have to double check, right? Because sometimes it says, you should use this function, or you should use this instruction, this command. And then I'm like, OK. And I go and try it. And it's like, this command doesn't exist. And I got fooled again. So you really need to be very, very careful and always double check, right? Double check the documentation. If you're trying a new library, if you're trying something new, be very, very strict. And this is something that I do, and it's good, is I keep a track of the hallucinations, because what I do is that I take notes and then I move that into the agent's MD file, just to be sure, like, don't do this again. Don't do this again. OK. This is important, right? So have a mental model, right? Write the acceptance criteria, right? What are the conditions where you say, OK, this is how I want to get this done? Ask for small changes, because maybe you ask for a specific thing and it will tell you and it will give you a bunch of code, and then it's going to be tricky to really understand how everything was done. And it's very important to understand what the AI did, because if then you want to scale it or you want to refactor it, OK, you might use AI for that, but you really want to understand what happened. Because imagine that if this project scales and scales and scales and scales, it will get to a point that you have no idea what is in there. It's a monster. And we don't want to get into that position. Because if one day your particular AI or all the AIs decide to stop, like, I don't know, OpenAI decides to kill ChatGPT or whatever, you're going to be in front of a code base that you don't even know where to start. So don't do that. Understand what is happening all the time. Treat it like a junior dev, absolutely. Plan first, ask why, and request alternatives. Asking why did you decide to do this is pretty cool. So I will recommend you to do that, because you will see like the reasoning. It's always going to show the reasoning, but it's pretty cool to see like the response for that. Diffs. The diffs are always useful, no matter if you're using AI or not. But have a look at it, see what happened, what really changed. And yeah, don't only rely on like, okay, is passing anything that you're doing. So best practices. Before coding, again, clarify the intent, constraints, play the constraints of what the AI is, where is the domain that the AI is going to work. Give the context that you need, because we have the context window, so don't give more than you actually need. Not only for the context window as well, is you don't want the AI to get confused. So imagine that you're bringing a junior developer into your team and you're telling him like, yeah, and this is how you should do this, and this library is for this, and this, and then you ask him to or her to do something, they're gonna be like, okay, should I do this, should I do that? Just keep it like very focused onto what it has to do. Ask for small changes, right? And after the code, after everything, the process ends, review, ask the questions why that I told you about, test, run the test, performance, security checks. This is really not that different from your usual software engineering, software development process, right? And workflow, again. This is not the best format to show the input, but I might show an example. But if you're using CLI agents, you want to follow this structure. So you see the role, you are a PHP developer. The context, okay, this is the technical, like the tech stack that you're gonna work on. This is the task, these are the constraints. So for example, don't change all related modules. So you give all the instructions. And sorry, because this is because I use HTML for this. Shouldn't. It should be better to see it in a more structured format. But you get the idea. And keep the output really focused into what you want to get as a return. Well, this might be, I'm also going to go through this quickly, but you really want to, Git is always going to be your best friend, or one of your best friends. Git is one of the most significant inventions in the world. Is it or not? I really think so. So you can follow, your usual Git commands to work with the AI. One thing that I would recommend is always tag the commits that are done by the AI with an AI kind of tag. That really helps you, into understanding where the changes came from. Especially if you are working on a project that has different developers and it's a big project, it's always good to know where the AI got injected code into the repo. This is also going to be necessary because very soon regulations are kind of pointing that way. And you really want to make sure that you can indicate where AI injected code. Of course, I could check with the AI in the UI, ChatGPT or whatever, and then myself as a human put the code in, and I don't necessarily need to tag it. But what you really want to do is when that process is kind of automated, always tag that. It's a really good advice that I can give. Kind of the same process that you want to follow if you want to work on a big feature. You describe the feature. You can add screenshots. I love adding screenshots. This technology is getting so cool into understanding the screenshots. Or I'm going to give you a story. I can't share too much details. But there was a bunch of features around some design that needed to be translated into React, components. And now the designs were in Figma. Have you worked with Figma? All right. So Figma, you now can connect Figma with your CLI agent, whatever you want, let's say Claude, through MCP. Have you heard of MCP? So MCP is a protocol that allows you to connect these, any application, Figma, Azure, whatever, you name it, into your LLM or your CLI agent, and it allows to communicate, right? So from Figma, you copy the link to that specific component, and then you go to your CLI, which is connected to your repo, let's say your React repo, and you say, create this component, and you put the link, right? So Figma, if your designer is a decent person, it will add like all the styling, the colors, the width and pixels, all of that. So it will grab that, and it will create a component based on the ones that you already have on your repo. So it was so mind-blowing. The work that we thought it was going to take 3 months was done in a week, right? So I'm not even kidding you. I saw this with my 2 eyes. I was part of that development process. I have been coding for ages. When I saw that, and that was pretty recently, I realized how everything is really going to change faster than we think. Because this is not the final product. We still need a developer to go through it. We need to test it. We need to make sure that it follows our standards. But the code was there. The biggest portion of the work was done, and it was done under our development guidelines. It was not like some crazy code that was going to be very difficult to maintain. So that's why I think that all of you really need to be open. Even if you don't like it, you need to learn how to use AI for coding, because otherwise you're going to be, I can't use this word, hold on. English is not my first language. Yes, you know what you're going to be. So learn it. And I don't want to be like very like talking about like the streams. It's just the reality of what I'm seeing. So learn how to do this. Learn these workflows. And this is pretty much the standard that is happening all around. Essential Git commands for AI work, how to test AI generated work. It really needs extra testing, and this ties a little bit with what you were saying. We really need to be careful about it. It's like reviewing the code of a junior, and I have to say, we shouldn't think that juniors develop wrong code. I have seen juniors that are absolutely amazing developers. It's just that sometimes juniors, they're learning about good coding practices and so on, and that's why we really need to be kind of an extra eye on that. You can ask the AI to break its own code, but what is the golden rule? AI code, human test, human reviews, and then the AI can test again. AI is really good for testing. Certain things that you have to be mindful about, because maybe you will see that the code runs and it passes all the tests, and then you deploy to production, and then you have, 1,000 concurrent users in a minute, and then the project fails because it's not performant. So you also have to be mindful about that, and that's where your agent's MD file is so important, because you want to think, and this is what I meant to think about an architect, all the little things that you have to be mindful about to be able to use AI for your particular project. Well, this is kind of obvious, but you will be surprised. Don't ever put like secrets, API keys, any of that sensitive information into AI. If you need to use customer data, place labels in it, use generic data in it, tag your AI, your commits with AI or whatever you want to call it, evil robot, Terminator, whatever you want. Review the licenses, because sometimes, depending on the model that you're using, and there are thousands of models, depending on the one that you're using, maybe you cannot use that for commercial purposes. So be sure to check that. This is kind of the voting bit, but this is also something that can really get you in trouble. And yeah, check, are you using private repo? Is it an open source, an open model? You really want to have a look at that.
I just want to say one thing back before you move on the base secrets thing. A friend of mine was using a vibe coding platform recently, just testing out at a hackathon. Nothing dangerous. Oh, you want me to repeat?
You know the rules.
Yeah, just referring to the pasting of secrets, the whoops-a-daisy, I gave my OpenAI keys to the universe, whatever. A friend of mine was vibe coding a hackathon we were both doing. We were doing a bunch of different things, but he decided to try out entirely vibing it. He purposefully set up everything first, and he put his secrets in a TOML or a secrets file, whatever. It was away, it was safe, it was done properly. He had env set up, everything else. While he was using it, the CLI tool decided, I think it was Claude, decided that those shouldn't be in a secret folder, they should be in a much more like hard-coded situation. And it chose, without telling him, without him asking it to move where the secrets were to a public place and then push them to the repo. Because when I pulled it to clone it to run it, it worked. I was like, oh, I haven't put my keys in yet. He was like, what? And it was right there. It had decided on its about 8th commit, several steps into the process, to do something absolutely insane. So it's not just don't paste your secrets, it's also watch that bugger, he will paste your secrets.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
I just wanted to let everyone know.
Yeah. Absolutely. We really need to be mindful about it. So, yeah, on both ways. It's so tricky. It's honestly so tricky. Because we cannot see AI as a magic solution for like the best developer and we can't. We really need to be mindful, but it's a very powerful tool. It can really, really help us. But that's why this is so important. Reviewing, testing, following a workflow. Yeah, so using CLIs, I will show you the CLI. You basically use your terminal to connect to any of these tools. Like I said, Claude, it will have context of your repo, and it's faster than copy and pasting from ChatGPT. That is just the wrong way to do it. So this is easier. It lets you configure your flow, how you want to work with the code. And the agents right now, for example, OpenAI, they have Codex, which is pretty cool. Have you used Codex? Any of you? Because most of the people use Claude. Which one do you use, Paul? Different ones? Yeah. Have you tried Codex? Yeah.
I use Codex.
Do you like it?
Yeah. First I used Claude, and then five. Yeah, first I used Claude, and then when 5 came out, I switched to Codex, and I found it better. But then new Claude came out, and I switched back to that. But then Anthropic put the limits on the $20 plan, whereas I've got the pro plan for ChatGPT. So
you went back.
Yeah.
And it's also this is so overwhelming, because you get used to a tool, and then there is another one that is better, and then you get used to that one, and then 3 weeks later there's another one, and it's like overwhelming.
I mean, I use both actually at the same time.
Yeah.
I usually have Claude in a terminal, and then Codex window using my ChatGPT key and Visual Studio Code. So.
Exactly, through Visual
just
Studio.
like 2 things going on at the same time.
Yeah. Because you can also use it on your IDE, right? Visual Studio or whatever it is that you want to use.
Also,
so.
we're starting to run out of time. So.
Oh, sorry, I talked too much. Okay, I'm going to just share the slides again. There is some references that you can use for Claude and Codex. I would recommend for you to have different agents file depending on the area. If you have a project that has backend and frontend, and like have agents files for each of those. And I will share this because it's a lot. And we don't have enough time. I did wanted to show you, before we go, how this works. So, for example, I'm sorry, this is the laptop that I use for the talks, and sometimes it's not the best. But I'm going to go to an app that I'm doing for my trainer. So let's use Claude, right? So I have my terminal, I have everything set up with Claude, and I'm in the directory of that project, right? So if I write Claude, it's going to connect to Claude Code, which is the CLI from Anthropic, right? And then I can say, for example, explain the code base. Well, this is going to take a lot. So basically what it does is that it's going through the whole code base. It's going to gather the information. Yeah.
I have a question. You are recommending us to use CLI, but are you against, for example, using Google Code Assist or I don't know, Cursor, because you believe the CLI is more immediate or more powerful, or you just don't like the idea of having a GUI to?
It's a matter of preference, to be honest. I really like this.
There is a particular reason, or just your personal preference?
It's a matter of preference. I'm old, so for me, the terminal is how it fixes my mind. I like working in the terminal, but it's a matter of preference. Using the IDE, for example, Cursor, is amazing because you have everything integrated in your workflow, in your workspace. So it's a matter of preference, okay? I'm very much, I don't have connection. It's not gonna work. Okay. Yeah, I really like CLI, but at the end of the day, it's the same philosophy, right? Mm-hmm. You will have this within your IDE if you want, and then you can use it that way. Cursor is amazing. The Google tools, of course, I love them, but I didn't want to be biased too much in this talk because I talk about Google technologies all the time. The Gemini CLI is amazing, Code Assist. There are many, many different tools, right? I think the most important thing that I want you to take away is the process, the things that you have to be mindful about, and to be open to this.
Understand. Thank you.
Great question. All right, I need to connect this, but basically what it was going to do is review the code base and give me a summary of what it's finding there. So apologies for that. Question?
So we're just gonna ask if there's any free or open source alternative of Claude, because not everyone can afford it.
So what's that?
Gemini's free right now.
Is it?
Gemini's mad free. Like they've got loads of Google credits as well. If you go on the developer page and click, you probably don't tell me more than this. I'm using it quite a lot at the moment though. Gemini's got a lot of free.
Yes,
well,
yes,
I was also hoping
absolutely.
to run it on like a local server, you know, because.
Right. So for local, I would recommend you to install Olama, right? Yeah. Yep. So Olama will allow you to have everything set up in your laptop, can be disconnected, and it will work. And then you can download, for example, open models like the Gemma models from Google are absolutely amazing, and you can use them for free. You have the Llama models from Meta, a bunch of other models.
The thing is, I tried it, but some of them do need like an actual like really beefy graphics card.
Yeah.
For it.
Llama, yeah.
It was Gemma that I tried. I think it was.
Yeah, try. If you're going to use it locally, try Gemma, the latest one. Well, depending on what you want to do, but the Gemma ones are really good, really, really good.
But you can use Colab to. If you have Colab account, you'll get free graphics cards for 7 hours or something like that. So you can use that.
The other thing as well is that depending on your computer, if your setup is like say 16 gig and your model is like 20 gig size on disk, it's going to struggle and be slow. So you want like your GPU or your CPU or both. You can set whether it's using one or the other, you want that to be well within your RAM, because basically it's going to have to like check the whole model for every token, as it were. So if it's got to like partially load that, then check the other half, it slows everything down to like 30 seconds, 40 seconds a token. So yeah, you want to be making sure that your model is smaller. So I don't know which Gemma you had, but if it was like 20 gig, it was too big for a 16 gig laptop. You want like a 5 gig model. That will also massively help.
All right. Any other question? I have to say that the person, if you allow me, because I know you hate that I do this, Paul is one of the most brilliant developers that I have ever had the pleasure to work with. So
it's not so much, I'll interrupt you so you stop. It's not so much a question as a sort of statement and ask you to give me some feedback. So I have to read this from here because I'll just stutter otherwise.
Yeah.
So I think it's a truism, like reading code is harder than writing code. When you have to read a pull request,
Yes.
it's really dull and it's a bit of a cognitive strain.
Yes.
So I want to ask you to feedback on is the sort of cognitive burden of using AI. So we take this idea that it's like harder to read than to write, and if you can produce 2 days of work in 20 minutes with an AI, and if everyone else in your team is doing the same thing, it has this sort of multiplicative effect where your brain has to work a lot harder. So you are producing a lot more, but it takes all the joy out of it.
That has a good chunk of truth in it. Like, it's true that, for example, this example that I gave, that we produced that amount of code, it was faster than we were planning it, but it's still under code review, right? So yes, that is true. And maybe we need to find a solution for that. Because one might say, oh, we can use AI for code reviewing, because there are agents for code review, but still, you want to be very mindful. So yeah, I guess it's just, if you think about someone using a typewriter and they really enjoyed it and suddenly it's gone, I think we will need to adapt to the change. And maybe we will not like it. But yeah, I agree that maybe we will be producing more, but then maybe the big chunk of our time is going to be code reviewing. Do we really enjoy that? I get what you're saying, 100%. I'm a little bit depressed now. That's a depressing angle.
To pick up on your point about the cognitive burden, one of the things that I found useful is to have my code review in a different place or different context to where I'm editing and where the AI is editing code. So I typically code in Visual Studio Code. I've got my integrated terminals there running the AI and doing all the file changes. When it comes to a kind of final review, once I've used their kind of split editor, I actually go across to GitHub Desktop, so I code in dark mode, but that's in light mode. And weirdly, I find that it's like, oh, this is different. I'm now looking at a kind of red-green on a white background, and it kind of switches my brain into kind of you can kind of see patterns that you don't see, because if you're looking at the same thing for an hour or so, you kind of become blind to it. Whereas I found that just having light mode in the review app kind of switched my brain out of that, which was a weird kind of effect that I found.
Yeah, but it's around that cognitive piece. That's interesting. Yeah. We can try that, Paul. What do you think? You're not convinced.
I mean, it's not made it fun, but it's it's kind of made it a bit different to do. So it's a different kind of task.
Just on that note, I was speaking to one of our interns a few weeks ago. And like what you're saying, it seems like the job is going more from developing to reviewing pull requests, basically. And that's fine for me because I've spent decades doing this and I've got the grey hair, I know all the code smells and that.
Yeah.
But him as an intern, he's saying, well, how do I get that experience? Because I can't go straight to pull requests and say, well, that's a code smell, that's something that shouldn't be done.
Yeah.
So in 10 or 20 years' time, do we suddenly have the skills gap?
Yes.
How do we deal with that?
That's a very difficult question. And I don't know I know the answer for that, to be honest. So I'm going to give you an example. I used to have a code club at my local school, right? And I remember that I think it was when ChatGPT came out, and I started testing it and playing with it. I was like, and it was, I don't have that question in my mind anymore, but at that point I thought Does it make sense to teach the kids how to code? But we have to. Like they really need to learn how to code, but is the level, is like what they need to learn around coding is different, right? It's not more, I don't know if you remember, I don't know, coding with C++ and having to be mindful about the memory pointers and all of that. We don't need to, like, obviously there are projects and developers that they need to work on that, but we don't need to worry about that anymore. That doesn't mean that we don't code. It's just that things are changing a little bit. So I think that they are going to be focused on other kind of problems and issues and challenges around coding. And it's a different way of learning about code. But I know it's very fuzzy right now. And we're still like trying to figure it out.
Do you think that maybe in that 10 or 20 years, sorry, do you think that maybe in 10 or 20 years' time then it will have evolved to such an extent that you don't need the human oversight as much? The human experience of saying
Yes,
this is good or
so,
bad?
yes, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah. The details into how are we going to get there, I'm not really sure, but I really think so that it's going to get like that.
We actually have a question from the live stream. I know you've got like a couple of slides left, but Francis in the live stream is asking, how is it that you manage AI tools within an organization?
Oh, it's very difficult. It's very, very difficult, very difficult. It really depends on the type of organization that you are working with. So for example, my organization is highly regulated. So the way we use software, third-party tools, we need to go through vendor risk assessments. There is a lot of things that we need to be mindful about. You really need to have in place some AI governance council, we have an AI governance council, but AI governance group of some sort. You need to have an AI risk management framework. There are some frameworks that are around that you can follow, but at least have that, an AI governance, AI risk framework. So you have to be very mindful about the regulations, especially if you work or your company works in Europe, because the EU AI Act is quite strict. It's very comprehensive, but it's strict. So yeah, I will say mindful about the regulations, have something in place to track what are the models that you're using, model cards, what are the software that the developers are allowed to use, and so forth. But that's the minimum that you need to have. Brilliant. I think we're over time. Any other question? The last one? We're good? Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, Patty. That was great. It seems like this is probably one of the groups that have had the most amount of questions that any of the meetups I've been to in the recent time period. So what I want to say is a lot of these conversations that we're all having within each other and stuff like that, these can definitely continue either on the Discord or online in some fashion, or at the pub, which is where some of us will be going, hopefully all of us, but I know that that's probably unrealistic. So I'll be going to the pub. If you think you're going to be going to the pub, just kind of give a hand wave if you want. Hey, that's quite a lot of people. We are going to the Society Rooms, which is the Weatherspoons just down this road, and then kind of to the right, it's the closest Weatherspoons on the map. We find it's best because it's got quite a lot of seats. So we will see you there. I think that's everything to mention, but thank you very much for coming. If there's any pizza left and you want to grab some on the way out, go for it. But yeah, thank you very much. And another round of applause for Patty, please. Thank you.